What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about if we should play as MJ again in Spider-Man. This time, obviously, for Spider-Man 2. So should we kind of reprise the role of playing as MJ in this game? I think it's an interesting question. You know, we talked about a few weeks ago, obviously, the leak, the supposed leak of the multiple characters that we could be playing in this game. And, you know, it got me thinking. I even mentioned it in that video. Well, number one, the more characters you have, that can hurt the game, depending on how many you do. Maybe you drop some. Do you drop some that maybe you played in the original game? There's also the fact that at least two of these characters, right, Peter and Miles, you could technically play as them as just like casual, normal, everyday people. You could also play them as their superhero counterparts. And then when you have all of that, that's already 4. And then if you have MJ, if you have another playable character like the leak said, now you're approaching 6, maybe 7 if you can play 2 different versions of the playable characters. So, you know, I think it's something that, you know, do we drop MJ or not? That's maybe a more harsh way of, kind of sizing up this conversation. So before I get too far into this video, as always, make sure if you guys do like this Spider-Man content, you're subscribed, you guys have the bell icon turned on. If you guys want to join our Discord server, link for that is in the description below. I try to make these videos at least once a week, okay? If there's leaks, if there's news, if there's just my own, thoughts on this game, I like to try and do it once a week. Hopefully, we get stuff as the months progress, right? Maybe we get news of them doing stuff. Again, I assume more leaks will obviously happen about this game, but we're gonna take it from there, basically, okay? So, let me start off by saying this. I think when we look at Spider-Man 2, it's important to look at Spider-Man 1 first. I actually did enjoy the MJ stuff. I didn't think it was the best part of the game, but it was definitely an opportunity to do something a little bit different. Even the Miles stuff, I mean, you look at how Miles was treated in very little amount of gameplay that we had to play as him in Spider-Man. It really did do, I would say, what it was designed to do, which was put us into these games. Now, it helps the characters. That's another thing, too. I mean, playing as Miles, playing as MJ, I think helped develop the characters a lot more versus if we never played as them, okay? And also, it was kind of a break from the normal stuff that we were doing in this game. Now, I would say you don't necessarily need a break, but at the same time, they've always done it. You look, and now they've only had 2 opportunities, Spider-Man and Miles Morales, but both times, if you think about it, they have injected the human aspect of it. Obviously, in Spider-Man, we get to do, again, Miles, we get to do MJ quite a bit. You get to do Peter, that strengthens the relationship with Doc Ock, and even with Aunt May, again, you have to strengthen that relationship somehow, so obviously having Peter just be Peter is the best way of doing it, right? Then you have Miles, but even in Miles, the game, right, there is several sections where you're just playing as Miles walking around, and again, it helps strengthen relationships, it helps you kind of just take a break and see things almost from a different angle altogether, right? I think it worked, again, across the board. I think it worked in Spider-Man. I think it worked in Miles. I think one of the worrisome things would have been if every time we played, we were like, this is boring, I want to get back to the main stuff. And I'm sure there were people that thought that, but overall, at least to me, I really enjoyed it. And I did see it as we're just doing something different for a little while, right? Again, kind of like a break in the action. Now, again, when we get to Spider-Man 2, I would say, I guess I would say I want to play as her. You know, when I made this video, when I came up with the idea, when I hit the record button on my microphone, I didn't have an answer. I didn't like pre-plan like, oh, I'm going to say yes or no. I would say yes. I do want to play as her. Would I be crushed if we didn't? No. I would say that's kind of the happy medium, like the middle grounds that I live in, where it's like I would like to play as her. She was cool. She did have some pretty neat scenes. And again, one of the things with MJ, too, was really developing the character in that she can actually do stuff. You know what I mean? I think, you look at some of the movies and stuff like that, like, she's not really in the spotlight. She doesn't do much, like, at all. Depends on, obviously, the variation of what you're reading or watching. But in the games, again, like, she is, like, both of them, Peter and her, they've been through a lot. I actually love. Now, with the face change, I don't know how I'm going to feel about it, like, going forward, because we really haven't seen them interact, but we've seen pictures, but we haven't seen, like, cutscenes with them, right? But I loved the relationship between these two characters. Like, you had a sense of what happened. You didn't know everything. You know what I mean? You weren't there for the 6, 7, 8 years that Peter was Spider-Man, but you knew there was history. You know there was stuff that happened. You know they've been through a lot. And that already, I would say, helps develop her character, and Peter's, but we're talking about MJ here. That already helped develop her character. Then you have on top of that her being able to do stuff, right? Like she's the journalist, but she's trying to get really close to certain dangerous things that she probably shouldn't try to get close to. But again, it strengthens, and there was even, you know, the big kind of thing that one of the last times you play as her, or maybe even the last time, that, you know, she kind of makes it known, like, I can handle this, you know, it's gonna be okay, like, let me do it. And I think that really helped her character. So it depends, I would say, on how much they want to lean into her character in Spider-Man 2. I think it would be very important because, again, kind of the character arc of both her and Peter, they were in the relationship. They obviously broke it off, right? But they're kind of like on and off again. They definitely still feel like some sort of bond with each other in the first game. Obviously, they're a lot closer at the end of it. Obviously, they're closer in Miles. So, like, they're going to be together. And we've talked again about Venom, and we've talked about the symbiote and all that stuff. Like, that's definitely going to play a role in this game where I feel like Peter's relationships are going to be strained and they're going to be tested. And to be honest with you, he really at this point only has 2 relationships now. He has one with Miles and he has one with MJ. He used to have one with Aunt May. She's no longer present. So there's only 2 people left, right? So I feel like you do have to put a lot of focus in those other 2 characters because of the connection to Peter. And also, we've talked about the idea of, I remember I made the video, like, will we have to fight, you know, Spider-Man? Will have to fight Peter, like, as Miles. So if he becomes evil, or obviously, you know, just however they want to portray it, will we have to do like a hand-to-hand fight with Miles? Well, they could do MJ stuff too. Now, I don't know if you'd have her like sneak around. I don't really know how that would work, especially because of the Spidey sense, but I think it would make sense to also play as her. Maybe not in a confrontation with Peter, but again, just to kind of strengthen her character up a little bit, give us a little bit of a break from the action or a break from the web swinging, all that kind of stuff. I think it makes sense. The only worry that I said in the beginning of the video, I'll say it one last time here, the only worry is just trying to do too much is my only thing, is that if you're going to play as Peter, like Peter Parker, if you're going to play as Spider-Man, if you're going to play as Miles, if you're going to play as Miles Spider-Man, if you're going to play as MJ, that's already 5. If you're going to have more, that's a lot. Now, you could argue they've done that a little bit already. Yeah, you'd be increasing it by 1, because in the original Spider-Man, you didn't play as Miles the web swinger, okay? And in Miles Morales, you actually only played 2 different versions, okay? Now, obviously, that was a smaller game, but the most they've done is 4. This game I guess ideally, is that the word you want to use? Would ideally be 5 if you want to give all of them a chance. So now you're at 5, but again, there's that rumor of that 3rd playable character. Now, but the interesting thing is with that leak, and I don't know if I said it very clearly there, but like, when you say 3 playable characters, well, like, you already had 3. Like, in the first game, you had MJ, Miles, and Peter. Technically, again, you had 4, I would argue. But if you're talking people that you're going to be doing combat with, which I would say, like, the rest of it's kind of like jabbing at this leaker. I would say, if you want to believe that leak, the idea of it, I would say, is the person that you're doing, like, combat with. So they're talking Spider-Man, Miles is Spider-Man, and then they're talking another character that is more brutal, right? We talked about they use guns, all that stuff, but they're like the character that you can move around the city with, you can fight things with, maybe you can do missions with. That's what they mean. So MJ doesn't count. Miles as a person doesn't count, and Peter as a person doesn't count to this leaker. You know what I mean? So we'll have to see how it all comes together, because it could end up being where we're playing as 6, 7 different versions of people, which is quite a bit. It's quite a bit for a really, it's a single-player story game. You know what I mean? And that's a lot to do in that. I would prefer you play as 1 if I was like going back to Spider-Man. But again, I actually really like the way they handled it, where it's like I had no problem playing as 4 different characters basically in that game. Again, I had no problem playing as Miles the person and Miles the Spider-Man in his game. And if you wanted to do 5 in this game, I don't think that would be that big of a problem. If you increase it, obviously it's not guaranteed that it's bad. I would also say, though, it's not guaranteed that it's good, because you really start to strain. You really, I would say, start to take away, because that's a balancing act, right? If the amount that you played as Miles and MJ in the first game didn't take away from the main character. But if you have Miles, and then you have Spider-Man Miles, and then you have MJ, and you have a 3rd playable character, well, like, do you forget Peter's even there? You know what I mean? So we'll have to see how they, if they do it, and then how they kind of balance it all in the end. So let me know, guys, in the comments below, what do you think? Should we play as MJ? Do you think that maybe we're dealing with too many characters here? Let me know. As always, again, make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. If you guys want to join our Discord server, we're so close to 700 people. You guys can be the one. You right there that I'm talking to right now, you could be the 700th member. Link for that is in the description below. No, honestly, I greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for watching all these videos. Again, I try to do a new Spider-Man video every single week. Suggestions are always welcome, and I hope to see you all on the next video.